Well, delegates at the Reserve Bank's Biennial conference in Cape Town have heard that fiscal policy and monetary policy in South Africa have not been well coordinated. Panelists at the conference emphasized that the two policies should be working together towards economic growth. Delegates also heard that altering government spending priorities is not enough to stimulate economic growth. We are now joined by the CEO of Inkunzi Wealth Group, Owen Nkomo, for more. Mr. Nkomo, always a pleasure to see you. I usually see you at coffee shops in suburbs I won't mention, so nice to see you this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, Flo. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're most welcome. All right, in layman's terms then, when we hear that the fiscal policy and the monetary policy aren't well coordinated, what exactly do we mean? How do we explain that?
So in simple terms, we are talking about this perennial battle between the Reserve Bank and the public sector finances. How the Reserve Bank, if we remember very well, the Reserve Bank's job is to make sure that we've got a stable currency and we deal with the issues of inflation. That is the monetary side of managing the country's finances and controlling the risks that determine where our currency trades and where the inflation in the country subsequently also is managed. But then the fiscal side of it is where we say, okay, we've collected $1.5 trillion, and now we have to start using it to look after the needs of the country, after the citizens and all the departments that get paid money by National Treasury. So that side of it is controlled by politicians mostly in terms of where the funding that's ultimately allocated by National Treasury goes. So those are the two scenarios that decide what happens to our country's future. So the big conflict obviously is if you try and marry the two, it's going to be a battle between the technocrats at the National Treasury and obviously the guys in politics that are controlling the national budgets that have been allocated by Treasury. And
on that note, I mean, when we're hearing that, if we're going to alter, how government spends and their spending priorities, that doesn't, it's not enough really to stimulate economic growth, then what is enough? I mean, they sit with the coffers, they sit with the money, as you say.
So they're sitting with the money, but the question is, what are they doing with the money? And are they doing the right things to stimulate the economy? They're sitting with the money. Are they running the right programs to make sure that all the necessary expenditure goes to give us a percentage of growth as a country? And obviously from the Treasury's perspective, the guys are saying, we're paying out money to you guys and we're anticipating that you guys will look after things with the ultimate view of benefiting the country. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. You get money being sent back to Treasury and get money being put into deals that are corrupt. You get money being abused. And unfortunately, there is no way that the central bank, in my humble view, can work in collaboration with the public sector, which manages finances in a very questionable manner sometimes.
Yeah, why would the IMF want to come to the rescue, as they say, or support the economic growth of a country where, the government doesn't even stimulate the economy then?
Because of the very fact that we've got a great Reserve Bank and the National Treasury that is aware of its liabilities and the fact that when liabilities fall due, we have to pay them. Yeah. So before allocating money out, they do a budget and they know that there is debt that is lying in the country's balance sheet that we must pay for. So the IMF will gladly give South Africa money. So too will the World Bank and America and everyone else, because they know that as much as we've got the one side of the management system of public finances that can still be improved, we've got a very strong side on the left, which is the Reserve Bank, that manages the country's finances to make sure that, there's stability in the currency as best as they can.
Yeah, let me tell you why I asked that. The IMF says, we're here to support, this South Africa's economic growth and their goals. It's not really help, is it? Because they come back and then they want it, tenfold. They want it back with interest. So to come across as, these people that are coming to save and help and support, is that the correct way to see it?
No, look, the IMF and the World Bank and other global institutions that lend money to governments, they're selling money. And if governments can't manage their own finances, ultimately the lenders of last resort is going to be your IMFs and the World Banks and a few other global institutions like the IFC. So no one forces you to go there. If you manage your national finances well, you probably are going to have very limited need to go and ask for money from these organizations. And if the guys have to come in and step in to help the country, unfortunately, we have to pay up. They are not doling out money for free. It's money. It costs something, and we have to pay for it. That's why I'd much rather we have a better public finances management, scenario where the government is not abusing cash, spending money on, national departments or parastatals that are not producing anything, or that are actually losing money and not producing much for the civils, for the society.
Yeah, so I thought it sounded like a bit of a scare tactic when the IMF's Gita Gopunath said that the challenges lying ahead, and she named some scary things that are lying ahead of us that include, tough economic global financial conditions, rising geoeconomic fragmentation, as well as climate change. Almost like, South Africa should really take this offer of support from from the IMF. But, what did you make of this?
The man is trying to sell money.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, what do you make of, the IMF presenting, this to South Africa, the sort of scary landscape, the scary thing that, is ahead of us?
Flo, the man has got targets to meet. He's probably got a budget to make. So he's going to create a picture that is as bad as he needs to make it. But truth be told as well, our public finances are not being managed well. We're abusing money. We're taking money back to national treasury when kids are still going to schools without proper ablution facilities. So I do think that we are actually in a better position than most of the countries on the continent in terms of us being desperate to borrow money from, your IMFs and the World Bank. So I just think that we need discipline when it comes to managing our public finances. We need to put it in places that are going to grow the economy. But we are unfortunately spending all that money, putting it in places that are not going to bring money back, that are not going to help us collect more tax. And unfortunately, wherever there's shortfalls, we're going to have to go and borrow money from these international organizations. But I do think that at the moment, I've got confidence in the current Minister of Finance. I just wish that there was more stringent implications to the rest of the civil service that is responsible for budgets and how they're spent, in terms of making sure that all this great tax that's collected by Mr. Kiswatara and his team at the National Treasury is spent properly, and it doesn't lead us to generational debt, to the international funders.
All right, it's always a pleasure to see you, Mr. Nkomo. Owen Nkomo is the CEO of Inkunzi Wealth Group.